You're watching TelecomTV from the TIP Summit at the FYUZ 22 event here in Madrid. I'm delighted to say that I'm now joined by Lloyd Mphahlele, who is GM, Group Technology, responsible for transport and OSS tools at MTN. Lloyd, very good to talk to you. Thanks for spending some time with us. Before we go into the whole issue of disaggregation, just remind us about the extent of MTN's networks and business across Africa.
It's quite a privilege and a pleasure to be at the FYUZ event, this year. So as MTN, you might know that we operate in 19 markets across Africa, and the Middle East. So that is really operating the mobile network, which is the radio access network, as you know it, the base station where the cellular telephones, attach. The business covers also, the enterprise and fixed, networks. Yeah, so it's across that base of the markets. Yeah.
Now, MTN has long been associated with network systems disaggregation. What's been the appeal of disaggregation to you?
Yeah, very good question. So I think just, the fascination that it's got the opportunity to address some of, the key challenges that we've been facing as an operator. So from an MTN, perspective, we have to contend with, the complexity brought about by the multi-vendor environment that we have. So we thought, open and disaggregation would really come in handy, to help us with that. So because of the complexity, we needed to find a solution to really simplify the network. And this is through introducing intelligence, which through TIP, as you know it, there's a subgroup called OOPT, which is Open Optical Packet Transport, where the transport initiative, programs are being run. And within that, we have what is called MUST, which is MUST, which stands for Mandatory Use Cases for SDN transport. So together with some of, the leading operators globally, the likes of Vodafone, Telia, Telefonica, NTT, Deutsche Telekom, we came together and put a white paper for open SDN architecture, which really began to give a standard for SDN, which never really existed. So this was just to ensure that we automate or we accelerate automation of the SDN, because it was going to be quite difficult to do that if we are not aligned on common protocols and standards. So from a TIP perspective, they are partnering with standard bodies, so they're not reinventing the wheel from that perspective to bring this whole architecture together and standardize it, which then makes it easy to address the multi-vendor situation that we have.
What are you doing in practice? Are you able to tell us about any of the trials or distributions you've got of disaggregated networks?
Yeah, sure. So, back in 2019, we did the lab trial for what is called the DCSG, which stands for Disaggregated Cell Site Gateway. So it's an open white box router, if you want to call it that. So we did a lab test in South Africa, one of our flagship markets there. And it was also an introduction of that technology in Africa. So we're quite excited about that. And doing the test in the lab just really gives you a sense of how the technology worked. But there was a lot more components to consider in there, including how, the product would fare in a real network. So we needed now to take it a notch up, and we managed to take it to our market in Uganda. So we are quite grateful that the market allowed us to run this proof of concept in there, which was concluded very recently, and it was very successful. We are very excited about that. So what we trialed over there was not only the technology and its functionality, but also the operating or business model, where now we have a disaggregated architecture, which then means that the software and the hardware are separated. And then it introduces what is called, system integrators. So we needed to also trial, the model itself. So we're quite happy that, it went quite well. Yeah.
Now, the ability to improve network automation management functions has been cited by supporters of disaggregation as one of the main benefits. Is this the case? Is this a real factor that could change how you operate and how you manage networks?
Yeah, and I mean, this is where, if you want to call it, the softwareization of, transport, comes in. Earlier on, I spoke about, complexity, being a real challenge. And, looking ahead, it's going to get more and more complex. The network is going to get more and more complex. And this is where the intelligence come in. And where it ties in with disaggregation is the standardization of these APIs, as we know them, to ensure that we are able to orchestrate, to abstract the network and orchestrate it from, a single layer. So this talks to, from a transport perspective, domain controllers, moving up to hierarchical controller, which is where the real network, abstraction happens, and automation, kicks in. Yeah.
Okay. And finally, Lloyd, what is it that the industry, and in particular the TIP community here, what can they focus on in the coming years that's going to really make the jobs of people like you and the operators easier? What is it that you're imploring them that they need to work harder on?
Yeah, look, and I mean, we are part of the community, as they call it. So we all put our heads together to really ensure that the solutions that we come up with are aligned to, the common problems, that we have. I think we are on the right path. So I think the first thing was really getting the standardization of the interfaces and protocols right. So they talk about these APIs and some of these protocols that are there. So I think we are in the right path, because really where we're going is minimizing that complexity from the multi-vendor environment, but also ensuring that there's commonality from the different vendors, and introducing that layer of intelligence and making it seamless. So yeah, look, I think we're on the right path. Yeah.
Well, Lloyd, thank you very much. Great talking with you. Thanks for joining us on the program.
It's only a pleasure, Guy. Thank you for having me.